BD5 pilot with you out at the Hillsboro hangar on a Sunday. And as you can see, I'm sitting in the plane. I have the strap on. I'm in my seat. I have the Softie parachute on. And no, the canopy will not close with the cowboy hat. But without the cowboy hat, I do fit. I don't plan on flying with the cowboy hat. So I'm going to continue getting the hinge set up at the floor level on that seat, and then of course I'm waiting on the parts to get the extra bracing in, so I make the seat just a little bit stronger. I have a user question coming from John Merrick, so I'm going to turn the camera view around and we'll go over a few things in the aircraft. Now John is the one who's building a simulator in Australia using an actual BD5 cockpit and then some 3 monitors out in front for a panoramic view, which I think is a really cool idea. And he's been really doing some nice work to get a nice side stick set up in his simulation, so he can simulate the positioning of where that armrest and side stick work. But the rest of the controls, he was showing some pictures of a 3-lever USB throttle mixture and prop that they sell. And I wanted to go over, told him, I said, buy 2 of those and just use 2 of the levers and then make some extra levers for you. So in the center of the BD5 is where you handle the gear retract and the flaps. Now the gear retract, this will make a bit of noise, but the gear retract requires you just give this a pull back and the gears retract. It's the fastest retract you have. The trick you have to learn if you're flying the aircraft is your hands on that stick. You've just taken off your just at basically your angle of climb or rate of climb speed, so you're slow in the plane. And when you yank back on this stick, the tendency is to push forward on this stick. You have to learn, you have to motor train yourself to not push forward on that control stick, not let it move. One of the things that Jim Beattie used to do when he was training people on the operation of the gear was actually have somebody stand back and hold the elevator while the person practices that in the aircraft like I'm doing. And if they feel any movement coming through that elevator on the aircraft, that elevator right there, they can feed back to the pilot that, hey, you're moving that stick when you move that gear control. So we don't want that to happen. And then the extension is just the reverse of that motion. And now the gear's out. Now for flaps, flaps operate off of this lever. And so we're going to pull this over towards my leg. That takes that out of the detent. And my flaps on this aircraft are actually set for 15 degrees. And the original builder chose not to put the 30-degree detent in. I actually slide all the way back to 48 degrees when it's fully extended. And I may want to revisit that. You know, it may be a situation where no, that 15 is fine for the takeoff, 15 for the initial approach phase, and you just, on final, you just want to go to that full flap setting to get the full drag out of it. But that's how that flap operates. And then on the side here, we've got the throttle, and we've got the trim. I still have the manual trim that Jim Beattie originally designed. I thought of going to an electric trim, but I actually like this lever right here. And the reason being is since the center line of thrust on the BD5 is above the center of gravity, where the wing sits and how the body is going to react to when you change thrust. So when I go to full throttle on this aircraft, it's going to create a nose forward, a pitch forward on the aircraft. So what I need to do is on a takeoff, we have our takeoff setting on the flap. When I find that out, I'll put a little white mark here that tells me where that is. But in the future, when I'm flying, I'll be out and doing maybe some slower speed cruise type of things, sightseeing, let's say, and I want to go to full throttle. I go to full throttle, but my thumb is right there to pull that trim back just a little bit to counteract that pitching forward moment of the added thrust with the trim to hold the nose back up. Same thing happens when we pull the throttle off. Now, people say that the BD5 is dangerous because when you chop throttle, if you lost power, let's say you were on takeoff, you're at best angle of climb, so you're really pushing the envelope on the aircraft, and you happen to lose your engine right there at that moment, the aircraft is going to pitch up because it's lost that thrust. Dave Pryor, I think it is, with the Experimental Aircraft Association, he owned a BD5. He put about 400 hours on his when he gave a presentation at Oshkosh, And he actually demonstrated. He did full on power on, and then full power off in a high nose angle, so a takeoff type of situation. Showed just how much the aircraft changes its pitch, and it's gradual enough that yeah, you can catch it. If you're really beaten, not paying attention to what you're doing, yeah, you could be in trouble. But it's the type of thing you could catch. What he was explaining was that you bring back that throttle, and then you can just come up there either with your thumb or your fingers, and you can push that trim back up and control. So this manual trim gives you this really beautiful ability to control what the aircraft's doing. And of course, you'll be feeling through the side stick. I haven't had the pleasure of flying a BD5 yet, but the story I get is that there's nothing I will ever fly that gives you the manual feedback, the balance of control and the way that stick feels, making you one with the airplane. I love the way a Baron feels and a Bonanza feels in flight. And I'm told that the BD5 is much more sensitive, much more entertaining than that. I've flown an RV4 also. That responds pretty quickly, and I like that aircraft. The reason that the BD5 has so much feel is because the Jim Beatty reverse engineered all the tricks that they would use on the big, large utility aircraft, your passenger liners and your cargo planes that were developed in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when they were developing larger and larger aircraft. And they really hadn't done a lot with hydraulic assist yet on those aircraft. And so what they were engineered to do is to reduce the amount of pressure the pilot had to use to use the control inputs. That was done in the reverse on the BD5. Since it was so small, so light, and would respond so quickly to control changes, it's actually designed to where the control surfaces feed more input into your hand. That's why it feels so good to fly. Well, I'm hoping this little video gives John Merrick some ideas on how to set up his controls on his simulator. And I'm pretty tickled that this all works, although only slightly upset that I can't fly around with my cowboy hat on. But BD5 pilot will be back with you when I get to work on the fuel situation, which may be today, but more likely it'll be next week. BD5 pilot's out for now.